retreat next week that we're really looking forward to, because so much has changed in the last couple years with COVID. And we just keep getting more and more things that are thrown at us that are becoming increasingly difficult and complicated. I mean, that's always the nature of COC, but this one's just a little extra. So we've been meeting with Division of Housing and having this conversation about presenting to you all today. And anyone who's been a part of those conversations, please feel free to chime in at any point. But the new way that we're kind of looking at doing things is just to streamline here. So, cutting out MDHI, for lack of better words, as the fiscal agent, that by no means that we're, going to leave you guys high and dry, that you're never going to talk to the COC about ESG ever again, because it is such an important part to our homeless crisis response system. So we really want to be more involved with the state on planning out the best use of these dollars and being more of a strategic thought partner and getting rid of some of the things that have come up that we've noticed have just been challenging in the last few years that we've been administering these dollars. So really the why behind it is to make your lives hopefully more simple. So looking at less contracts, if we can just get to a point where organizations are contracting directly with Division of Housing, we don't have to have that subrecipient agreement in place. That can kind of hold up the process sometimes. And I can't speak for exactly how it will work, but if you're getting some of those other components of ESG funding, it's for shelter or outreach or things like that, it's possible that that all could be looped into just one contract. So less paper, less killing of trees, and just, sometimes that waiting game that we all play to try to get our agreements in place. I think the other benefit is just like simplifying the reporting. So also I didn't mention on the slide, but maybe incorporating some more system-wide reporting with Aurora and with Denver to really get a better picture of how our ESG programs are performing in the COC, and not having to do that twice to MDHI and then for also the state, but we could all work together and maybe look at that differently and the different metrics that we're using to evaluate performance. The other big why is that there's now an amazing team who are very hands-on of ESG folks at Division of Housing. With COVID, they've really stepped up. They've been able to make some new hires, and they have a different level of capacity there to also, continue to support a new group of subrecipients as well. Again, alongside the COC and our other city partners, and making sure we're all taking advantage of the different knowledge that we have in our community. Another thing would be the streamlined reimbursement process. So not having to wait for payment requests to come from Division of Housing to MDHI to then have us get people reimbursed. So you'd be able to go directly to Division of Housing for those reimbursements. And then, like I keep mentioning, is really maximizing the COC as a resource and helping us adhere to our true mission, which is leading and advancing collaboration to end homelessness in Metro Denver. So, not being this administrative kind of middle person again, but us being able to look at the bigger picture of the system and how we can collaborate with all the different partners, all these different funding streams, and coordinate as best as possible. To that last point of planning a more effective use of ESG funds for the COC, getting people to think more creatively and how we can use these dollars to support the greater system, like coordinated entry and HMIS, and bringing that really all together. So that's really the why behind it. And so what does it mean for you? I think is probably going to be the bulk of the conversation that I hope we get to have, because we all are going to figure that out together. There are some things that we already know that one, you'll have to apply directly to the state. So again, this doesn't apply to our city partners if you're applying to Denver or Aurora. But if you're interested in the State Division of Housing ESG funding, that NOFA usually comes out in September or October of each year. So that will be the responsibility for you all to, start thinking about what you'd like to do for rapid rehousing and prevention next year. So there will be no MDHI request for proposal or process this year. The program year will remain the same as we know of right now, so beginning on 4/1 of 2023. And then, like I said, we're just going to keep ensuring that this is a smooth transition and support the ESG programs in our COC and all the other ways that I'll get into on our next slide. That really is the HUD requirement and minimum requirement for the COC's responsibility. I've been through this transition before when, like I said, we took over the administration of ESG, and I hope that we can, just have really clear communication, probably starting, my guess would be at the end of the year or early January, to figure out kind of what this looks like, what we would need to do in HMIS to make this change, how do we go about, closing everybody out, and all of that good stuff. And I'm not going to read all of this because it's a lot of words that I just copied over from the Continuum of Care interim rule as it relates to the ESG program. So really what our responsibilities are is to evaluate the outcomes of projects funded under the ESG program and COC program as well, and make sure that gets reported to HUD. So that's a lot on our HMIS team, also in some of the monitoring work that we're doing, and really consulting with the different organizations and funders that receive ESG funds in our COC's geographic area, and making sure that we've got that coordinated assessment system or coordinated entry, and we're just keeping in contact when it comes to consulting on things like the consolidated plan that each entitlement has to do, and the state, and looking just to be kind of that more strategic partner and thought partner in how we can best use these dollars in our COC. And my last slide is just to thank everybody. Like, this has been, like I said, a lot of conversations, and it's just really great that we've got such strong partners at Division of Housing that are open to looking at this differently. We found out in this process too that we're the only COC in the country that really manages state funds like this for ESG. So that was, kind of shocking, and also it makes sense because, it does get a little bit muddy when we've got too many people, trying to message out pretty much the same thing, but that can get lost. And we're hoping that you guys are all excited about this too, and know that we're here if there is any concerns or questions that are coming up. And that was just the last slide that I had, was just to kind of open it up to folks. And I'm going to stop presenting, and if you feel comfortable to come off camera just to have a more candid conversation, that would be great. But that's all we had for that news. So sorry for those that I'm like, just wait till the 22nd and we'll have more information, because I wasn't trying to be cryptic or anything, but wanted to make it a conversation so it doesn't just get put out in an email and everybody's like, what the heck just happened?
And I do want to say that, as far as since I'm looking at the billing every month, I would say most of you guys are doing a great job keeping track of what you need to with your documentation. Like, that will probably, like, that part of the process will probably be identical, and you're all really well prepared for it. But if you feel like you're not, let me know. I'm happy to go over stuff with you. As Jackie said, we're not just going to be like, okay, we're done, bye. I don't know exactly what that's going to look like, but we won't just leave you hanging either.
Jamie and Kristen, did I miss anything from our conversation?
I don't think so. I just want to reiterate that, at this kind of juncture with MDHI, we're really looking and asking, like, why are we doing things this way? Is it the best way to do things? And like, what we felt like this was an added layer of bureaucracy for many of you. And where the COC can be helpful is experts in supporting you with this process, not necessarily being the pass-through agency. So that what this is going to do is allow us to free up some of the time on our team to leverage their expertise to really assist your organizations. So we're hopeful that this, again, will reduce some of the administration barriers for you and some of that burden, and provide you even more support with the ESG program and how do we think strategically. So Jackie, thanks for that. I don't think you missed anything. Yeah, I appreciate everything you share. And I hope people will ask questions, provide feedback, but we will definitely be here. Yeah, Midori, like just we will be asking ourselves that question a lot. Why are we doing it this way? And we just felt like this was something we could do to make your lives a little bit easier.
And I just want to add, so I'm Kristen Toombs with Division of Housing with the state. And I know many of you work with Cassie and Holly and Aaliyah and others on our team. And I just want to reiterate what Jackie said, that this is, and what Jamie said, is this is just really, as we all grow and build capacity and the resources have grown, and we just look and say, does this make sense? We hear you where there are pain points, and let's find a way that we all can work together to make this as efficient as possible. This is not in any way, we are absolutely supportive of this. We have absolutely appreciated MDHI's amazing partnership and support with this. This is, we are supportive of this because we hear all of you in MDHI that this is what feels like makes sense, but want to hear from others, other questions or concerns you might have. But I want you to know that this is not a sign of any concerns or negative performance or negative partnerships. This is all good. This is all just, everybody's doing amazing. We have such wonderful collaboration and partnerships across all of our agencies. And this is just to help keep refining how we work together the best as possible. So just want to say thank you to everybody, and that we look at this as just, let's work together smarter. And we will continue to have those conversations and want your feedback of if that is indeed the case. As we transition, we want to hear from you on where you have concerns, where you have questions, where you might need support from MDHI or from the Division of Housing staff. So don't be shy. And we will be doing all of this together. You still have lots of support. We still need all of you to be doing this great work. I have no concerns, but I want to make sure we have confidence that this is a good way to go and that we're all going to do well with this. But we absolutely want to make sure we hear from you all if you do have concerns or questions or suggestions. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to MDHI, and looking forward to continuing the work together. I don't know if Cassie or anybody else from the Division of Housing ESG team has anything you want to say. Otherwise, we want to hear from our wonderful partners.
I'll jump in while we're waiting for folks. I've been looking at things in the chat, and it's exciting to see that some folks are excited. I will say I'm getting ready to do our HUD monitoring next week, so just want to shamelessly plug thanks for all of you who've helped to get us that documentation. But I think that just echoes kind of what Jamie and Jackie have been saying about really wanting to streamline, realizing how much amazing work you all are doing, and wanting to be cognizant of that. And then I also wanted to just highlight something Nicola said. We've actually been working really closely with MDHI probably for the last 5 years or so on trying to standardize and streamline. So I just want to reiterate what Nicola has said about making the administrative shift as easy as possible, and hopefully the documentation we're all asking for, the way we're tracking and recording things, it really won't change that much. But I just want to echo, if there are any questions at all, please reach out to your grant manager, or if there are pain points that we haven't thought about as we go into the transition, always open to hearing that feedback.
Thanks, Cassie. And as you were talking, someone put in a chat. Wait, I want to open it again. I'm sorry, I'm on my phone because my computer decided to restart and do updates. So I think Sharon said this will be interesting to see how MDHI COC will interact with all of the COC members of ESG. How will it all change? Excited but curious. So great question. So as you heard Jackie say, we are the only state in the country where our way to follow the COC regulations of ESG coordinating with COC is that we pass some of the activities funds through the COC. All other COCs in the country might give some funds to the COC for things like HMIS, right? Or maybe the COC does do the work. But there are other ways to interact, as Jackie's one slide showed, around helping with performance, technical assistance, making sure that we're evaluating how we're all doing, and working together with the HMIS work, and more that so there's the strategic and the supportive and the let's do that continuous improvement with each other on how we're doing as a community, as a continuum. And so we are excited that we think that's where we can focus more of the attention on, where we can partner together, is really looking back on those regs of the different ways that a COC can partner around ESG, and see how we can use that to support each other. Because the funds have been set up this way, where, as Jackie shared, the outreach and the shelter come directly to Division of Housing. So what we also noticed is that this has kind of created this kind of like two separate groups when it is one program. And so I don't know, Sharon, what exactly, how this will look, or how we can truly think more as a continuum and act and communicate more like a continuum when it comes to the ESG funds from Division of Housing. But that's one thing that I think this brings up, that opportunity. And we look to all of you that get any of these funds from us for your thoughts on where, again, it could be beneficial. Don't worry, we're not going to say you have to all, talk to each other just to talk, right? But like, are there ways that we can think about this as truly a continuum of funds and programming and partnerships, that this, kind of created this inadvertent kind of two groups? So I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts to that, but that sort of answered your question and sort of doesn't. So stay tuned.
Emma, I feel like you were going to say something too.
I just wanted to chime in and reiterate my comment in the chat about how, as an agency with contracts with both DOH and MDHI and in all components, and this is just like exciting. I never thought I would get this excited about something like this, because what we've learned trying to onboard new operations and administrative staff is it is so hard to for folks to wrap their heads around the differences, and that part in and of itself takes so much resources and capacity to continually get it all straight, that this is definitely exciting. And then the one piece of it would just be, as an agency that operates in Weld County with homeless prevention and rapid rehousing funds, just, I guess, the little bit of like concern around would we be ultimately funded at like a lesser level altogether because we don't have a specific separate source. So, we'll continue to want to be vocal, and in our proposal definitely explain where we had come from in the past. So I don't see that as an issue. I guess that would be the only area of like, wait, is that going to impact anything, because we are in two counties and two COCs, which is kind of a unique, us problem.
So that is a good question. If you're we're talking about obviously what's going on for MDHI. And so we have not had this conversation with the other COCs, so they still do operate with some of the funds coming through them. So happy to have that conversation there as well, unless, again, Cassie or others, you have other updates on that. But we have not moved officially in that direction, and we're happy to consider that if that's what the COC and the grantees kind of feel makes sense. And we're also happy to keep it this way if, again, that's what feels. So I think for those of you who do work across multiple, we'll make sure that you're in the loop, and don't hesitate to reach out to us and say, well, what does that mean for us? So we'll try to figure that out for you case by case as needed.
And Gwen,
appreciate you flagging that.
Gwen had a question in the chat, and this would probably be for Cassie. And I was thinking about this too. So when I submit, I just submit like the fiscal agent cover sheet and then any MDHI documentation. I don't submit any of the subrecipients information. And Gwen is asking the same question, like when they submit, Are they just going to submit the cover sheet and then, you know, any timesheets or whatever that involve them? And if so, would they need to redact any information? Like, did they just need to submit sort of the cover sheet and then maintain their files, you know, with the actual information for audit purposes, or what? That may be a future question, but I thought I'd bring it up.
Yeah, I apologize. I am not the grant manager for MDHI, so Gwen, please forgive me, but can you tell me what agency you're with?
Hi, yeah, I'm with Boulder County.
Boulder County. Yeah, so I think to echo what Kristen said, I think we'll look at that on a case-by-case basis. Boulder County is also a fiscal agent, so I don't think that would actually change much of the documentation because as to Nicola's point, fiscal agents have a different level of documentation than others. But I think just the main theme here is that if there is any additional work or burden that has been created by this, just reach out to your grant manager as soon as you're aware of it and we can talk through those solutions. I don't want to give you a more specific answer because I haven't had my hands in the documentation, but happy to have that conversation, Gwen, with you or with anyone else who, you know, has a pinch here that we aren't anticipating.
Okay, I know we receive homeless prevention funding through the Next Steps program through the state. And we are required to upload every receipt, every supporting document with every draw request. And it's substantial administrative burden. And that you know, if it is what it is, but I definitely want to make sure that I have that bandwidth on my team to support that change. So
definitely, and we don't have to get too into the weeds here, but I think Gwen, for the county, it's not really going to change fundamentally the HP role. Next Step is a little bit of a unique program for our ESG situation, so I think that is going to be a different documentation requirement. But part of the reason that we wanted to have this conversation is so that we could talk about how to increase the administrative capacity in your agencies directly. So again, if it is something that does, you know, change or have an increase in administrative burden, part of what we're hoping to be able to do is, you know, pass the money that MDHI was receiving directly onto you, also that you can address for that burden or adjust it. So shameless plug, always sooner rather than later, reach out to us, let us know what that looks like. And just know that Next Step is a little special.
okay.
Skelton has a question about what percentage of MDHI's total funding is ESG funds. Skelton, most of the ESG funds are just pass through. They don't fund our programs. They fund Boulder County or Denver Indian Family Resource Center or whoever. So, I mean, I don't know the number off the top of my head, but since it's pass through, I'm not sure how much. I don't know. I'm not sure how much relevance it has. Maybe Julia could say a little bit more to the fiscal end of that.
And maybe just to clarify, I'm assuming MDHI has other pass-through funding beyond ESG. Is that correct, or is that a false assumption?
I mean, I think maybe one or two grants, but nothing substantial.
Okay, so this was, I guess, then as we think about the influence that MDHI had in funding programs and organizations, this was the main lever, correct?
Skelton, not necessarily, because as the COC, we also oversee the process to apply for federal funding, but that does not pass through us. So it's about $30 million a year. There's a new NOFA out that's another up to 13 million. So I think more, instead of being a pass through, we want to help like figure out how to support some of those funding applications. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does. Thank you for that, Jamie. And I'm curious, Jamie, maybe a question directed to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you mentioned being new in the role, and I'm sure with that comes, you know, new insight that you're seeing. I love this efficiency that is being proposed here, and I'm curious from your perspective, are there other things in the opportunities in the system that you've seen that you think we should be tackling to increase efficiency?
You know, Scotiam, I think there's a lot. Again, I feel like every time, and I will say this particular change came quite a bit from talking to many people on this call and other people doing this work who brought up really good points around ESG. So I think there's this, you guys know, earlier this week, we released point in time data earlier than we normally do to get that out there for planning purposes. I think Skelchum, as you know, I'm hitting the 6-month mark as a new ED, and I think that's where we'll start to see some of those changes. I think there's a lot of efficiencies in the system, right? There's always things we have to do per HUD, right? That are, let's be honest, not the most efficient things ever. We're dealing with federal funding, but I do think there are some things we can be doing better here locally to make sure that those processes are as the least burden as possible for grantees. Yeah, Midori, I agree with you. There's efficiencies everywhere. So yeah,
that's a fair fair call out, Midori. Thanks for calling me out on that. Jamie, I didn't mean to put you on the spot there. I was just curious if there were things already in the work that the group had identified or areas that we're looking at to potentially again drive more efficiency. But again, wasn't intending to put you on the spot there.
Yeah, look for more in the near future. Hopefully with every process we get a little bit better. I don't know if you guys can see this, but it says progress, not perfection. And that's kind of the mantra, like what can we do better this time around? And then what do we learn from it? So yeah, that's a fair question, Skelchum, definitely.
Alexa, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, this is Johnny.
Hi, John.
Me and Alexa sharing office, so. Yeah, I have a couple questions and a couple reflections. I think this is a good move and will definitely help with, like everyone said, the administrative end and just like less contracts. And I like how you said, Jackie, saving the trees, that's for sure. So I've always appreciated MDHI having a little more capacity to provide more like intimate support to the COC. And so because I know I know Cassie and Holly and their team, you know, they are working with all of the state, and so sometimes the webinars that we have are really fast paced, and then I've always appreciated coming into this space and having that broken down and be more conversational. And so that's just some kind of, I guess, feedback and like things to think about moving forward. And you know, that's why I asked the question if like MDHI is going to continue hosting these kind of meetings or really supporting them and contributing to them, because like I said, it's been really helpful. And, you know, being a new ESG recipient, like I've had a million questions and I've always been able to get them answered here in this space on Teams. And then I wanted to ask if Division of Housing is still requiring collecting the certification of consistency with the consolidated plan forms, and if so, is there a way that we can get more support on gathering those? You know, trying to research the point of contacts to get those signed and sent back to us was like a lot, and you know, I think we had to collect like 12 of those letters when we applied for our 21-22 funds. And I appreciated that MDHI didn't have that requirement because it was a little easier. And so, yeah, can we get that streamlined and have that more efficient?
I think that might be a Cassie, I see you went off mute. Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know.
Yep, I was just starting to talk and then I realized I was on mute. So yeah, Johnny, I think you are absolutely spot on. It is very challenging providing federal regulatory guidance for an entire state, especially when it's diverse as Division of Housing. And part of the reason why we have wanted to better utilize MDHI's time is because they know you all so intimately and so well. So part of what we want to do is figure out, you know, how does DOH and MDHI utilize our different specializations to help make that onboarding process as smooth as possible. So I really appreciate that point about, regional conversations and the importance of having a monthly space, a quarterly space, whatever it is. I think obviously can't speak for MDHI, but we will be working very closely together to make sure that folks across the state still have that support. On the consistency of consolidated plan, that is a HUD requirement that I would love to streamline. And so if there's a way that MDHI was able to just get one form instead of 12, we can absolutely dig into that. I think that's some of the stuff that we'll be looking to have conversations about outside of, just the application that MDHI might submit to us. That's a perfect example, frankly, I think, of where they can provide some insights, some lessons learned, some, hey, here's how we're doing it in the metro area. DOH, is this something you all could do? So we'll flag it for this fall. But Jackie, let's definitely figure out how we streamline those requirements.
This fall, if we could just, for every county and city that requires it, it would be kind of contact where to send our request and email, that would be helpful. I remember when we were applying, I was going onto every city and county's website, researching the CDBG contacts and then calling them and then asking them who's the best person to send this to. And then, yeah, it was a lot and pretty overwhelming. And so if multiple people are applying, everyone else is finding those contacts, so can they be shared with everyone else? So yeah. And then if MDHI's, allocation is going to be put back into DOH. So does that mean we will get bigger awards? Or we can get bigger awards?
I think theoretically, I think one thing that's going to be an interesting timing with this is the fact that the ESG CV program is ramping down across the state. But I think part of what we're trying to do at DOH, and Kristen, jump in if you have more to add on this, but is figure out how we streamline our own application. So ESG CV is ramping down, but we've got all of that money coming our way from 1377, 1304, all these other state bills that were passed recently. So it might not be a bigger ESG award specifically, but there are additional funds that will be coming directly from Division of Housing that will be prioritized specifically for homelessness response. So kind of a vague answer, but yes, we're hoping to make sure that that gap is covered as those funds transition. I hope that helps.
I love Cassie's optimism. I don't know that we can make sure your gaps are covered. There are a lot of factors with those new bills and statutes and intents and expectations with those funds, and other projects and programs can come in too that I would say stay tuned for and apply all the different applications that will be coming out from Division of Housing. And if you think you're eligible or the program's eligible, apply. If you have questions about it, come to us and ask. This is such a new world that I just don't want to get folks' hopes up that we will be able to fill your gap. If the CV funds go away, suddenly we have the American Rescue Plan Act funds through 1377 to fill it. I just don't know. There's a lot of factors. So if you have heartburn and concerns about that, please reach out. You can reach out to me directly and just give us a sense that's helpful to hear what it is that you're specifically talking about. Also, don't forget that we're not the only ones with those ARPA funds, that many in the metro area, your local governments also have those funds, so you should be talking with them too. So yes, to what Cassie was saying, I just don't want to get folks' hopes up that you will necessarily get more funding from us. I would like to think that with efficiency and with more funding, that is the case, but there's just a lot of factors here. So love that question. And I hope that we will see some of that, but there's a lot going on here. So let's keep talking.
Midori, you had your hand up.
Just real fast, following up with that, I let Holly know this last week, but it would be really helpful and appreciated if Cassie continues to spread awareness about those funding opportunities. That's usually where we're learning about some of those things. And so I just want to say that that's been really helpful, and I've really enjoyed and like being on those listservs and emails. So
I think I shouldn't ask my question.
Can I just plug something along those lines, Johnny? I'm just making sure everyone saw this. We have the Unsheltered NOFA webinar. You guys know HUD dropped an Unsheltered NOFA. So August 4th from 1 to 2 p.m. is our webinar. There's more information. And then if you would please register, if you plan on attending, then you'll be sent the Zoom link. But I dropped a link in, and we'll be talking a little bit more about that up to $13 million that we're eligible for as a COC.
will MDHI still be having monthly meetings until the end of this grant cycle?
Yes, definitely. I think probably even through next summer, since for CV2, we still have to through August of 2023. And as we know, in those final months, it's when it all hits, and we got to do some moving of things around and all that good stuff.
Yeah, we won't abandon you, Johnny. But Denver Indian Family Resource Center has a new executive director. And if they would like to introduce themselves, this would be a great opportunity to do that. I saw that they joined the call.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Let me see if I can get my camera going without too much trouble here. Good afternoon. I am so excited to be here and to be a part of this conversation. I have been here just a little over a month and a half, and I've been really enjoying getting to know the community, our funders, our partners, and especially working with the amazing people who are here at DIFRAC. Johnny is one of those. Let's see, I'm also really excited about upcoming opportunities. I came from organizations in Arizona that were working on creating real solutions for the unsheltered population. And so I'm excited that I get to combine experience and passion and, you know, the education that I pursued. And so I don't know if there's anything specific you would like for me to address.
I would like to know how you pronounce your name and what pronouns you prefer.
Sure. My name is Talarita Tooney Rogers, and my pronouns are she, her. And I am Navajo. And so in Navajo, that would be a son.
Anybody else going through their minds?
I thought you were going to ask me, well, what's DIFRAC's next step? So I welcome that question. Thank you.
Yeah, and I think, you know, one of the biggest successes that we were able to have at MDHI to take over the administration of this program, it made sense for a while, was to bring new people to the table. So it is really exciting to see us be able to spread these dollars out. But to your point, Emma, that does come with, you know, small pots of money sometimes from multiple different agencies or, you know, funders. And so I think that's part of that strategy conversation that we want to have, is how to make programs full so you don't have to feel like you need two separate ESG contracts to do that. And I think Sharon kind of touched on it too in the chat of, you know, a lot of times we are crossing jurisdictions, and we are, you know, we've got organizations that will serve the entire Metro Denver region versus some that maybe are more specific to Aurora and Denver. And how can we just be more thoughtful about that too? So again, I don't know if it comes with more money, but there are so many exciting opportunities, and I love ESG, don't get me wrong, but I think next year will be like the 10th year that I've been working with this program. So for me, it's like so great to just know that we have the state that is in a great position to take it on and support all of us moving forward. So thank you for all of the feedback. And if there's more, I think we can talk a little more internally if we want to maybe send out a survey about how, MDHI could be now more in this collaborative space with you all and what would be helpful. I think we heard some good examples, but hearing from others too, once you can let this just settle in a little bit. And that's all we had, unless there's any other updates. Nicola, I just saw you came off mute.
That was actually unintentional, but yeah, I think that was it. If you feel like you don't want to ask your question right now, because some people don't like to do that in chat or in Zoom meetings, you can always email me and I can, present it internally or to DOH or to whomever, anonymously, of course. So, and no question is too small or in the weeds or anything. We may not have answers yet, but we will get them. But we can't get you an answer if we don't know what you want to know. So just let any of us know.
I do have a question for this group. I was curious if any of those receiving ESG funds have been able to incorporate Denver's CDBG funds for your work.
I don't think so. As the host person, I don't think that that's happening. Maybe VOA does, but not for the same programming, like for other types of programming. Yeah.
We at Division of Housing have used some CDBG as awards. Cassie, I don't know if you have more details you can share about that. How we've kind of incorporated some of our ESG fund or CDBG into this funding as well.
Yeah, so we were able to utilize some of the CDBG CV funding that the Division of Housing got, focused primarily on the public services component, which is a very narrow aspect of what CDBG can do. So I think it's maybe a restrictive example. I know that CDBG, can help with shelter construction, renovation, acquisition, etc., housing, construction, renovation, it can do a lot more than just public services, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And so our CDBG operates exactly like our ESG program does for shelter and outreach programs, but there are a lot of other examples of what it could do. So I'm happy to put folks in touch. We do have a whole division in the Division of Housing that manages CDBG and really understands the nuances of that grant. If you're interested in sort of doing an informational interview, happy to get you all connected with those folks.
I think that would be really amazing if you can help us, Johnny and I, get in contact with your team.
I think you all have my email address, but I'll pop it in the chat just in case. And I can do an e-introduction.
Thank you.
Anything else before the almost weekend? Great. Well, I'll stay on for a few minutes if there's anyone that has any other questions or comments that, to Nicola's point, that you just want to say directly to us. But other than that, we'll just keep in touch on next steps. We'll probably keep the regular meeting for next month at the regular time, and have more information even then. And we'll keep the conversation going and figure out how we can make this transition as smooth as possible.